Hello and welcome back to the Book, Business, and Brand Building Summit. I am your host, Jesse Krieger, joined today by a very special guest, a decades plus veteran of the publishing industry who's going to bring his unique perspective to bear on all of you. Working on books, looking at how to leverage your book to build a business and brand, and somebody that can help trace the arc of how the publishing industry has developed and changed over the last 10, 20 plus years, and what that means for you and your book and your options when you're ready to go to market with it. With no further ado, I'd like to introduce Joel Friedlander. Joel, how are you?
Hi, Jesse. It's great to be here. I'm doing fantastic.
It's such a pleasure to have you. We were just chatting before and realized we're both from Marin County, just north of San Francisco, or at least I'm from there, and you've lived there for, I'm guessing, a while.
Well, yeah, I'm a relocated New Yorker.
And but I noticed like Marin Books, or
it doesn't get any better. I mean, I feel like I lucked out. I got here 20 years ago. I'm not leaving.
It is a beautiful place, and honestly, a pretty good place for writing. It's inspirational as well. And that is certainly something that you know a lot about. I'd love for you to perhaps just share, for everybody's benefit. Some of us may know you, have been following you for years. Some, admittedly, like myself, are just getting to know you. And I know your story spans quite the gamut. Perhaps you can share a little bit about your journey to and through publishing, and we can take it from there.
But you're making me feel older and older. Yeah, well, I grew up in graphic arts, so it was kind of natural for me. My dad was actually in the printing industry for a long time, and I absorbed a lot of that. And, I used to go down to the print shop, and they'd set my name on the linotype machine, and they'd give it to me, and then they'd take it away because you'd get lead poisoning. Anyway, I just grew up around printing, graphic arts. When I went out to start working on my own, I went to graphic design, where I could use all the experience I had with printing and print production, but I didn't have to stand next to the printing press. That wasn't very attractive. And from there, I went into advertising, and then I went into book publishing. Book publishing is much better. It's much more fun. And you have these deadlines that are like 6 months long. People don't need it in 2 minutes. If you can have it in May or June, that would be fine. So I love book publishing. In the 1980s, I decided to write and publish a book myself. And because I've been a writer my whole life, I had a subject that I knew no publisher would publish this book. It was something I had expertise in, but there was no market for it. There were no other books in the market. And so it was just a complete unknown. I mean, no publisher would buy that book because they wouldn't have a clue who to sell it to, and that's not a good business proposition. So I decided to
body types, the Enneagram?
Body types, that's the name of it, the Enneagram essence types. Don't ask me what that means. It's got nothing to do with book publishing, that's for sure. But I published the book. I started my own publishing company just the way you did, just the way people are doing today. The big, big difference, Jesse, was that it was a lot harder, it was a lot more expensive, and it was a whole lot riskier. And people weren't used to dealing with what we now call indie authors. They just considered you as somebody who couldn't get a book contract, and therefore you were an undesirable life form, best avoided. So people, when they self-published back in those days, we didn't brag about it. We didn't advertise it. We did everything we could to try to kind of obscure the fact that we were publishing our own books. Because it just, people would leave the room if you told them that. So the fact of the matter is there was always a very robust self-publishing industry, but it was really kind of in the dark. People wouldn't talk about it. And there were people like myself or other people who had access to an audience, that had expertise in an area. It was obviously much more effective to sell the books directly to readers instead of trying to go through the whole book distribution process. We didn't want any self-publishers, didn't know how to deal with them, and mostly pretty much refused to deal with them. So there are a lot of very successful self-publishers in history, but you're probably never going to hear about them.
That's really fascinating, because I will certainly admit that today it's sort of a badge of honor to be like, I self-published my book, and it is true. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I would argue that it's probably easier than ever before to publish a book by oneself. Certainly compared to, lining up things on the letterpress and
Well,
pulling
and
the lever,
10 years ago,
that actually
it
worked.
was really hard to publish your own book. And it wasn't so much that it was hard, you could buy typesetting, but you got to realize this is in the days before, programs like Adobe InDesign. We didn't have that. You had to either go out and hire a typesetter and a designer and somebody who knew how to put books together. Now, I was lucky. I was working in the book publishing industry at the time. I was the manager of production for a big photography book publisher. And so I knew all the vendors. I could put all the pieces together. I knew how to do it. But if you didn't, it was very time consuming. It was very, very expensive. And the biggest reason for that, of course, was that there was no print on demand and there were no ebooks. So in order to publish a book myself, I had to create the whole book, figure out how to do that, and then send it to a book printer and have them print. I think my first print run was 1,500 copies. We had 1,000 bound as paperbacks, 500 bound as hardcovers. Okay, publishers love hardcovers. You know why publishers love hardcovers? They cost about $1 more to produce, and you can charge about $10 more for them. No mystery. So, we bind them up, but you had to pay the printer's bill before they would ship those books to you. So probably back in those days, that was about $4,000. So, it was time consuming, difficult. There were a lot of obstacles, and it was very expensive. And then once you got the books, then you had to figure out how to sell them. So a lot of people ended up with a garage full of books and not much else. Go for it.
Yeah, that's sort of the cliche in publishing, right? It'd be like, I wrote a book and I've got 2,000 copies in my garage. You want one?
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I get that phone call pretty often. And, they say, well, what am I supposed to do now? The truck just dropped. I've got them in my garage. I got my car parked on the street. What do I do now? I always say pretty much the same thing. I say, get in your time machine, go back 2 years and call me then. And, everything else is going to work out great.
It's like that proverb of the best time to plant a seed was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Absolutely.
When you're getting the call.
It's much better now. I love book publishing. I've always really enjoyed it. I still get really excited. I mean, I've done hundreds and hundreds of books over the years. I still get excited. I love helping my clients do their books or publishing my own books. It's just great. And these days, as soon as print on demand came in, it unleashed this incredible pent-up demand among authors and writers who wanted to see their books in print. And they just couldn't because, the going it yourself, that really, you had to be a special person to do that. And on the other side, we had all these gatekeepers, the agents, the editors, and they were doing a good job. Their interests weren't in developing authors or literature. They're interested in making money. That's okay. That's what business is about. So all of a sudden, print on demand eliminated all of the risk involved, all that money you had to pay up front and the 2,000 books filling your garage. All of that went away. Anybody could publish a book. It was very inexpensive. And, bam, the whole self-publishing revolution started off. And then when Kindle came in, it just hit the superchargers, and away we went. Here we are today.
Well, it's just fascinating to get to talk to somebody who's really seen that entire arc. I can only imagine. I can relate perhaps in a sense, and I want to get your feedback on this. It's like in my previous life, 10, 12 years ago, I was a musician professionally and was in a band, and we did the equivalent of self-publishing. We started our own record label and raised money and did the whole shebang. And this was in 2003, 4, and 5. I was studying audio engineering, and I was the last class to ever cut 2-inch tape to do an edit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And any music buffs out there might have caught that reference, but music used to be on a huge reel of 2-inch wide tape, and to edit it, you'd cut it physically and tape it together and hope you got it on the right beat. And it sounds like the analogy perhaps to setting up all of your book on a letterpress and doing the typesetting and the font setting and the graphics. And gosh, how much easier and more streamlined have things become due to digitization?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Of course, the flip side is also true, because now we've become the typesetters. We've become, because the digitization has put these tools in our hands, also the responsibility to do that work has devolved onto us. So whereas before I might have been an author and I just sent my stuff off, now I'm a typesetter, I'm a layout person, I'm a cover designer, I'm the marketing guy. So everything has two sides to it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. It's actually something I'd like to dive into more, is because, on the one hand, it sounds great to say it's never been easier to publish your book. It's never been easier to hit a button and reach the world with your message. And of course, there's a corollary to that, which is, what does it actually take other than the words that you want to share, the message you want to share, to make that a reality? I'd love to get more of your perspective on, one, how that's developed over time, and how, authors can take advantage, what they should know and how they should proceed given the state of where publishing is at today.
Yeah, this is probably the thorniest question that most serious writers face when they start thinking about publishing. A lot of people, it's very exciting, you don't need a publisher anymore. But, those big publishing buildings, they have within them, hundreds of publishing professionals who spent years and years perfecting their skills, acquiring contacts, getting over obstacles. They know exactly how to do their job, really, really well. These are top professionals. So now, the writer who wants to self-publish says, okay, I'm going to do all that. Well, how are you going to get that expertise? How are you going to figure out, what parts go with which? What do you have to do first? How do you know that you got to start sending out, ARCs 6 months before your pub date if you want to get any pre-publication reviews? That's not intuitive. You have to actually learn this stuff. So that's the two biggest problems, I would say, that are confronting people that I talk to. But I do talk to a lot of authors. One is getting the process itself straight in their head. I would say half of my consulting career is based on people not being able to figure out the process itself. So, and that's about half my consults, just walking people through the process, how it relates to their specific book. And, the other thing is really not understanding when to bring in the professionals, when to try and do it yourself, where you can spend a little money to great effect, where you could save money, and then getting the whole, what I like to call the production and marketing mix just right. So where you're actually producing the right book for your readers, okay? And so your marketing and the book production itself match perfectly. So the readers are going to get the book they want. It's going to look like the book they want. It's going to be priced the way they want. And everybody's going to be a winner, because you don't have any lack of alignment on those things, because that's really important. You don't want to go out there and start publishing lots of books that nobody wants to buy.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're losing money on every sale, but we make it up because we sell so many. That doesn't work, unfortunately. And I like it when my clients publish a book and they have a great experience doing it. That takes having a community around you, having people who are interested in what you're doing, publishing the right book, getting it priced right, set up right, in the right market. I mean, there's a lot of things to get lined up. And I think that's what's great about what you're doing, Jesse. All of the experts you've brought in to help educate people, that is the most powerful thing that we can do as publishing professionals to help writers coming into this field.
Is that your cat paying us a visit?
Here is. That's Bella. She's beautiful, but noisy.
She's a welcome guest on the summit as well. What you're saying really strikes a chord with me, Joel, because, with my own experience writing my book, Lifestyle Entrepreneur, I literally did what you described. I learned in design. I took classes on Photoshop. I actually worked with ultimately 2 different publishers. I didn't self-publish that, but I delivered a print-ready file, which I, for some reason, thought was normal. And they're like, nobody's ever done this before. But I was like, I had a vision for what I wanted to create, and I was, whether it's stubbornness or just drive, I was willing to undertake so many things that seemed far removed from writing and sharing in order to bring that into existence. And, you know, as I think back through that experience and working ultimately with 2 different publishers, I saw an opportunity to create the publishing company I guess I wish I had. And that's a large part of why, you know, I am personally involved in each of these. I undertake things like the summit and create other training resources, because I think you rightly identified that, you know, a lot of people just want to know, what's the process? What is actually involved? What's it really going to take to get it done, do it right, get it out there, not waste a ton of time? And then, you know, a lot of authors I talk to either seem to believe or certainly want and hope that getting a publishing deal means that they have a whole marketing team at their disposal. And good. I'm glad I got to laugh, because, you know, anybody in the publishing,
you know, I mean, hey, listen, you could find a lot of money in the street too. Could happen.
Yeah, it could, right? Just keep buying those lottery tickets.
No, look, I mean, basically, publishers are business people, and if they're good publishers, they're smart business people. And what that means is, yeah, they're going to take risks, because every successful business person takes risks. And, you know, your book might be a risk for them, but by and large, they're looking for books that they're pretty sure are going to earn out whatever money they pay the author. And there are many, many reasons why a book might be rejected by a publisher, and many of them have nothing to do with how good the book is, how readable it is, whether there's a market for the book. It's just that every publisher, I mean, you're talking to actual people. That editor might not know that particular side of your particular subject or that part of the audience. So they have no entree to that market. So they're not acquiring any books of that nature. I think, you know, basically, I would say, Jesse, that you are the future of the publishing business. The reason I say that, yeah, okay. The reason I say
let's just take a moment. I'll appreciate
you can quote me. The reason I say that is because for years people have been, and at the end of the year, every year, people say, hey, what are your predictions for 2014, 2015, 2016? Mine are always the same, pretty much. But my prediction is this. There are tens of thousands of authors, writers, who have gotten bitten by this publishing bug. And they discovered they could do it. And it really works. And at the end of the process, you have something that looks just like a book. It's unbelievable. And, you know, and it's edited, and it's beautiful, and it's fun to read. And that is really, really intoxicating. You become part of the media, in a sense, because you're now a media company. So what I anticipate happening is that more and more authors who have even a little bit of entrepreneurial spark, or who have some kind of marketing chops from some other business they've been in, will, you know, when they realize what's going on here, they're going to start small presses. They're going to start publishing books by other authors. Some of these people are going to become pretty savvy about what books they can sell into that market. You understand that a publishing company has discrete markets. They have discrete lines of books, and they acquire books specifically for those lines to send them into that market. That's what a publisher is, somebody who has access to a market. You know, I mean, as authors, we start the other way around. I love writing vampire romance, whatever it is. I live it, I breathe it, I get up in the morning, I'm thinking vampires, I go to bed at night, I'm dreaming vampires. That's all I want to do is write vampire romance. This is me. I'm just saying that this is a typical author thing. So you're writing vampire romance, and then you have to go find somebody who can sell them, who has access to the market of people who love reading this. So now as a self-publisher, you kind of have to do both. So if you've been successful with a book or 2 books, and you have readers who love what you're publishing, go and find somebody else. Figure out what a publishing contract is. You know, there are a lot of authors who don't want to self-publish, and probably wouldn't be very good at it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think you're identifying that intersection of creativity and commerce I think it can really throw creative people, extremely creative people, for a loop, because they are different. They're different things. And you can learn publishing as an author and become a great self-published author or work with other authors for sure. But it's a distinctly different skill set and approach than, say, how to write a great book and how to embody and share your passion through a book. And I mean, I know that you've lived at this intersection and operated in this intersection for quite some time. And with your prediction in mind, what advice would you give the aspiring author who, if they're here on the Book Business and Brand Building Summit, has some consciousness that it's not just about creating their book and shipping it off to somebody else, but that actually they need to represent the message in that book or be an advocate for that book in order to drive sales and have some entrepreneurial consciousness? And what would you say to that person?
Well, I think the summit is a fantastic idea. So you've got your books, your brand, and your business. I might not have that in the right order, but I think I remember.
They all start with B, so it's super easy.
3B. Your book, your brand, your business. Okay, I'm a book designer. I've been in the book business for longer than you want to know. And my message to authors is, of those three, the least important one is the book. Now, I'm sorry to have to tell you that, but that is the absolute truth. It really is a good thing when authors can pull back a little bit and realize that the book is one part of what they're doing. And usually, particularly for nonfiction authors, it's not the biggest part. It's a small part of what they're doing. Really, for a nonfiction author, the bigger thing they're doing is like creating that brand, imbuing that brand with all the qualities that they can put in it that are attractive to their target market, their audience, the natural audience of people who would be interested in somebody with expertise in their area. So those, once you have that, once you have a community and you know how to talk to people and you understand from them what it is that they need, where they're getting stuck, what's keeping them up at night, what is it that they need? Once you start to understand that, then the books just follow quite naturally. It's much easier, in fact. So the absolute most important thing, I would say, of those three things, your brand is probably the most important thing. If your brand is really robust and recognizable and well-known, you can produce books or other products or services or whatever you want to do, even for fiction authors. Look, I got a friend who's a poet, right? We generally think poetry equals no money. It's not commercial. But one of the things he does is every year, twice a year, he takes a whole bunch of writers on a tour of Ireland. And they go on pub tours and they go to famous spots in Irish poetry and they have a blast. And he actually makes quite a bit of money doing this, by the way. So, I mean, no matter what it is you're interested in, or if you're a novelist, a fiction writer, you're providing entertainment as well as a lot of information. Every novel has a lot of information in it. You're actually writing about something. There's some reason you were moved to write that book on how to be the best canoeer in the world, or whatever it is, how to fix your Volkswagen. That's really what you should be talking about. That's what you want in your brand. The book is just, one aspect of something that you can give to people or sell to people as part of that expression. But the brand, I think, is what everything else hangs on.
I really appreciate that perspective. And it's a great example of your friend who's a poet. And you're right. I mean, if you think of poetry in relation to books and book sales, it certainly isn't the top performing category. But what if it's not actually the book itself that's driving those sales? I mean, I can imagine, I don't even know what this person charges, but if they're doing a week plus trip in Ireland, going to historical places, drinking, etc., just one person enrolling in an activity, a trip, an experience like that has got to be worth hundreds, if not 1,000 book sales, even as a self-published author.
That's another really uncomfortable truth, Jesse. I'm glad you said that, because, I mean, a lot of people think you can make a lot of money selling books. And there are people who make a lot of money selling books. So that kind of keeps the whole story going. The fact is, though, that the vast majority of authors don't make a lot of money selling books. You can make a lot of money, and your books could be part of that. As you just said, I just did this myself in January. I was on a cruise in the Caribbean. It was called the Publishing at Sea Workshop.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so the cruise was about $2,000 to go on it, and we had tons of people, 30 or 40 people on the cruise. Obviously, I was on the faculty with a few colleagues of mine. We all went on the cruise for nothing. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is, what's that worth? And the only reason I give that example is because, you gotta get out of the book is everything, book sales are everything. If my book sales are down, I'm gonna throw myself off the roof. That is really not what it's about. And that's why I say this really is a long game. And that's why I've just said that your brand is the most important thing, because the persistence of that brand and the gradual accumulation of the qualities that you're trying to imbue your brand with, and the visibility your brand has as you expand it over time, that's money in the bank.
Absolutely. And I mean, if we think about it, well, even on this summit, we have in certain circles, Steve Scott, who's one of our presenters and has written over 50 books on habits and productivity. He has become a personality and also has, a brand and a podcast and a blog and so forth. But he actually, I know, and he'll share this as well, his primary income is from book sales. And so when, I hear that, I think he's actually in the exception, more so than the majority of authors who have used their book as part of a broader platform, part of their broader business and brand. And that is 100%, my goal for everybody taking part in this summit, to internalize what Joel is saying, what you've heard me say throughout different interviews here, is just, if you walk away from this not thinking I'm going to make a ton of money from just selling books, then you've accomplished a great deal. And hopefully much more than that. But that's a pretty good place to start, which is kind of ironic. At least I think so. I mean, even with 20 books in the market now, it's not a massive income stream from book sales alone. So really wrap your head around that, because I think we do some great books, and I believe very much in the authors I work with, the most successful ones have a multifaceted business and brand that's in line with what it is that they're writing about, sharing about, speaking about, putting forth. And I think that speaks to your point, Joel, on how that the brand, the overarching brand, is probably of utmost importance. The rest of the things are sort of derivative and subsets and become easy once that's clarified and available to the world.
Beautiful. I totally agree.
Well, I was just paraphrasing your own words, so that's good. So, I got a quote here from you. It says, "Writers change the world one reader at a time, but you can't change the world with a book that's still on your hard drive or in a box under your bed." And so that's Joel Friedlander, everybody.
Yeah, that's my big why. Hey, look, I went to a marketing conference a few years ago, and one of the things we had to do was an exercise in figuring out your big why. In other words, why are you doing what you're doing? I mean, we're entrepreneurs, and that means that we are actually in the world to help people make progress somehow, whatever it is, to make their business better, build a better house, or make a better book. Whatever it is, you and I, Jesse, and everybody in our position is here to try and make the world better. So you really have to kind of dive in to do this exercise. We spent about an hour or so on it, trying to actually formulate what is the essence of what it is you're trying to do in helping other people in the world. That was the expression I came up with. It took me about an hour I mean, it's only about 10 words. But that big why really anchors me to the people that I serve. And that to me is my connection to every author that I meet at a conference, that I write a blog post for, that I consult with. That is my bottom line. I want to help you get whatever it is that's in that book you wrote, that you had an expression. I want you to disagree in our marketplace somehow.
I think we had a slight connection error, but I think we're all good now. Might have missed the final few words of that.
Yeah, it did get a little fuzzy there.
Oh, we're back now.
Oh, good.
So, I mean, I guess it cut out at an inopportune time, but
Well,
you're telling us your big why for why.
Yeah, the big why. Why do we always have problems with technology at the critical moment? No, it's just, so that's my big why. Writers, there's a lot packed into that statement, Jesse. I mean, just consider the fact that writers change the world. I mean, that is really, really powerful. If you're a writer and you start thinking about how writers change the world and all the examples of writers who've changed the world for better or for worse, you could see that the power that you have to express ideas in a way that other people want to read, that is extremely powerful. And I think that every writer should own that.
It's a powerful why. I mean, just earlier today, I was inspired and I wrote to everybody, citing a little bit of Roman history, and I used a picture of Marcus Aurelius. And part of my point was, one of my favorite books is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This is a book written like 2,000 years ago, and thank goodness that he did write it, because, I mean, one, talk about standing the test of time. How many other pieces of media survive millennia? And two, it's just as applicable and useful today in many respects as it was then. And I think that speaks to, at least from my own perspective and experience, the power of a book. I mean, even if publishing has become more democratized and it's easier than ever to cross that divide from having a book be on your hard drive to being available for people around the world, that doesn't cheapen the value of what a book is capable of doing. It really can change a person's life as well as shift thinking on a topic worldwide. And that's powerful. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that why. And I think what naturally follows on from that, at least for me, is, how do you best help somebody cross that gap? Having the book that they've either written or they're rewriting it tons of times, or they self-published and are disillusioned and disappointed because it sold 7 copies and 5 of those are to their family members. How do you help people shift across that gap to really getting it out into the world in a big way?
Yeah, well, I have a strong prejudice, and this goes along with my earlier statement that the brand is really what's important. I have a strong prejudice about authors trying to stop authors from publishing their books, before they're ready. So it's really pretty common for me to have an author come to me and say, well, I'm just about ready to publish my book. I'm in the final stages. It's at the editor now. So I want to talk to you about the publishing part, because that's my gig. That's what I do. And I start asking them questions. I say, well, do you have a website? I mean, kind of good for a writer to have a website, to get different things. No website. I'm going to do one of those after I get the book out. Okay, do you have any social media? Yeah, I'm going to do that next week. So eventually we get to the point where we realize that if this author publishes this book, and this is no comment on whether the book is good or bad, I mean, who knows? It's quite likely that author is not going to have a good experience publishing their book. Now, I hate that. I love publishing, and I think writers, if you want to publish your own books, it should be fun. Come on, it's kind of fun. Selling them, yeah, that's challenging. Publishing them, no, it's like arts and crafts. So the fact of the matter is that the author's going to publish a book. Nobody's going to know about it. It's going to be like that proverbial tree falling in the forest that nobody heard. And hey, tree down. Who cares? Nobody knew. Didn't come near me.
But if somebody finds it, you can break that wood down and make paper for books with it.
Yeah, that could work. But the problem is, so I constantly try to get these authors to say, look, I think that it's great. It's going to take a couple of months. Let's slow down. Let's put that book aside. Let's start building a community first. Let's start finding the people who are really the likely buyers for what you've written. Who are the people who would really love to have this book the most? Do you know who they are? If you're a nonfiction author and you've got some kind of expertise, do you know, like, let's say the top 5 or 10 bloggers who write about your subject? Do you follow them? Do you get into their audience? I mean, there's just so many things you could do. So if you slow down, and work on the book, get the book ready, but maybe take about 6 months, as long as you can bear it, to not publish the book, to really work on getting to know your readers and building a community. Because I guarantee you, even if you put like 6 months in and you get a couple hundred people, it's going to be so much better when you publish that book. You're going to have actual people waiting for it, looking forward to getting the book. Man, it changes everything. And you're going to have a much better time with it. So I don't know if that answers the question, Jesse, but that's what was in the top of my mind.
Well, it's absolutely valuable and extremely pertinent. I mean, similarly, I think I get into conversations with people a lot of time at the end of the writing process or after they've self-published or started to go down that path and are just like, this is way more work than I expected or thought it would. And it's it's great advice to sort of pump the brakes. And if there is no actual brand, there is no community engaging in the ideas which you've written about, or if it's fiction or whatever you've written about, if it's not being interacted with and consumed in some way, and if you don't have a vision on where you fit within that genre, it can certainly be disappointing. And that would be a shame. And again, this has no judgment on the contents of the book itself, right? This is a strategy of engaging with people and having a sort of a coming out with the content and with the work that you've created before you have an official launch date, before you publish. That's what I'm hearing you say, Joel. And
absolutely. And don't be in such a big rush. Everybody wants to get the book. They want to hold the book in their hands. Hey, I get that. It's very, very exciting. But it's, order a proof or something and have fun with that. Just don't publish it yet.
Can I tell you, as a quick aside, what my absolute favorite part about being a publisher is? It's that I always get the first book off the press. I get the first printed on demand. I demand the first book be printed, and then I get to hold it. And it's exciting. I mean, if you're watching this and you're an aspiring author, and you're in the thick of it, or you have had doubts and you're battling through them, take heart. When that book, you actually hold it and it's done, it's pretty much everything that you can imagine and possibly even more. That was my experience. The first time I held a copy of my book, I was like, wow, after months and months wrestling these words into form, illustrating, doing all the layout, as I mentioned I did for my initial book. And it's worth it. So I guess that's a good takeaway. And I think you would agree. Like, it's worth it at the end of the day.
A couple of years ago, I did a book for a client, and he had been working on it for 30 years.
Recruiting what?
He had been working on this book for 30 years.
Oh my goodness.
And it's not like a romance novel or something. It's like it's actually a place name history of a section of Utah. And, we worked on it for 30 years. It's a huge 2 volumes. It's another thing, Jesse, that people really should understand. I frequently get questions.
Like actually worked on it for 30 years, not like stalled and hemmed and hawed, but like.
Yeah, he really worked on it. But, it was, the thing ended up 8.5 by 11, 2-column layout, 2 volumes. It was huge. I mean, it's a very, very large piece of work. And but the thing is that, you know, that there's a lot in these books. And the point I was going to try to make was that a lot of people who just picked this up recently and started publishing on Kindle maybe don't actually understand that there are many, many kinds of books that self-publishers can publish quite profitably. Like this guy, he's self-publishing a 2-volume work, a place name history. This is something that's going to be sold almost exclusively to libraries, okay? But the fact of the matter is the retail price on the 2-volume set is $150. It's not, and that's really well within what people would pay who know about this kind of thing would pay for that. So he can actually do that quite effectively. We did the books at Lightning Source, and they were pretty expensive because they're big, they have a lot of pages, hardcover, case wrap books. But, you know, that's a kind of book that a self-publisher could do if they know how to market it. And he had connections with the library, into the library network. So, you know, I don't think he was going to have any trouble selling it at all. So, I mean, think about that. I mean, you don't have to do just a 6x9 Create Space paperback or a Kindle ebook. You know, depending on what your market needs, you as a self-publisher could produce almost any kind of book out there effectively. Not every kind, but almost every.
That's incredibly liberating, to be quite honest. I mean, you know, you look back on my wall, admittedly, many of our books are 6x9 paperbacks, a few 7, one 8x10, a couple other alternate sizes, but that's really still just the tip of the iceberg. And in terms of like a 2-volume set that's only being sold to libraries, at face value, that sounds like, you know, potentially not the biggest moneymaker, but I would imagine he ends up doing quite well, especially if he has a marketing sense on, you know, communicating with library networks and getting into that.
It never needs to be revised. It will be in print forever. And once they stick it on the shelf, it's never coming off the shelf. I mean, there's just a lot of different kinds of books you can do. I mean, they don't all have to be consumables. You know, it's just, oh, I just did an insurance textbook for a guy. This was a book that had been traditionally published for about 40 years. It's a standard textbook on insurance. It's huge. And as a matter of fact, the first edition was written by his father and 2 other people, and he took over the publishing of it. It's in the 14th edition. And they pulled it away from the publisher when they realized they could self-publish it. I actually put this project together for this guy. It's another one. It's another big book with a very high ticket price on it. But he was just absolutely pleased as punch. He was so excited because he already had, you know, everybody who uses the book already knows the book. They want to buy the book. They just already want the next edition. Just send me the books. So he's got access to all that. All he has to do is set up an order taking thing and bang, he just eliminated the publisher from his entire business.
Oh, that is rich. And I bet he's imagining, you know, if he's on the 14th edition when he switched to self-publishing, man, could have done 13 editions.
Now, Jesse, a quick note.
Yes,
We're
Joel.
not going to end in the next 2 minutes. I'm going to have to go get my power cord.
Go grab it. Go grab it.
Right
I
back.
will do a song and dance here and talk to the good
editor. Back in a second.
Sure thing. And so, you know, it's fascinating to hear Joel's perspective, for me especially, you know, being in publishing, and to hear somebody that's gone through decades of working with authors, working on all types of books. I think it's very interesting how, you know, you can stretch so far beyond just what I consider sort of a typical business, personal development, self-help book, nonfiction book. It's primarily what I work with. Now moving also into spiritual titles. But there are so many other angles, like the academic book market. It's not something that's going to get a lot of airtime on the summit, but if you've ever gone to university and had to buy textbooks, you probably realize that they cost like $100 plus for a textbook. You couple that with how many universities there are and how many people studying in a topic, and you can see how even something like academic textbooks could be a huge moneymaker with a year-over-year dependable revenue stream as you do updated editions. and Joel is back, I can end my monologue on the potential profitability of academic book publishing.
Hey, well, there's opportunities everywhere. Hey, look, I was listening recently to a webinar about publishing books with no content. Now, that might sound crazy, but it's actually true. There are a lot of books that have none or almost no content. For instance, if you have an instructional book, you could easily create a workbook to accompany it. The workbook is mostly blank space because that's where people are going to write. So, I mean, if you think about these things from a business point of view, why wouldn't you want to have two products for basically about the same amount of work as having one product? It's not that much work to create that extra book, and now you can sell two things to the same person. And if it's really effective, you're going to make them happy.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mention that, because it's been a recurring theme with a few authors I've worked with. I've encouraged them, yes, do the companion workbook. We have a weight loss book, and then we have a 30-day Evolve Challenge journal that is, as you said, mostly blank space. But from the publishing perspective, I found it took just as much work to move that book through the publication process to get it being complete as did the actual complete book, and in a couple cases even more. But that's kind of an aside, just because there are more layout considerations than a book that's primarily text and a few images.
Absolutely.
But then at the end of the day, you've got two products in the market.
And also, you eliminated the writing part.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you did the work and you wrote one book, why not elaborate that into other books, as well as into other business development opportunities and brand building initiatives, which is, of course, what we're covering all over this summit. But
right.
Even going horizontally to other books.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I'll break some news. I'm actually developing a line of books on this exact subject. And here's where you get to see how this stuff fits together. Because, like, obviously, I have an affinity for writers. I'm a writer. I'm part of the market. I'm a published author. I'm a self-published author. So I really have a lot of simpatico, and my brand includes all of the empathy that exists between me and the authors in my community. So I was listening to this webinar, Jesse, and I'm thinking about it because I've done a lot of weird kind of publishing in the past. Like, I did a lot of public domain publishing at one time, another whole subject. But I was thinking, you know, I've already got, and this is what we're talking about. You build your brand, you get your audience, you understand where they're at, and then you can publish stuff that will make them happy. So I've realized, hey, I've got all these writers in my audience. I'd love to have some more products to sell or books to sell. I'd like to make people happy. Wait, I also love typography. That's kind of one of my favorite things in the world. So I'm about to issue, probably later this summer, a whole line of writers' journals.
Is this the first time that you've made an announcement?
I haven't told anybody. I told my wife. She's the only one.
You have it here, exclusive on, or at least you heard it here first, on the Book Business and Brand Building Summit, Joel Friedlander's next undertaking.
Our next night, I'm going to have a whole line of writers' journals under the book designer brand, because look, I got tens of thousands of writers in my audience. I buy writers' journals all the time. I love them. I use them up. But you know, I'd like to make one that's perfect for me, and then I think a lot of other people would like it too. So that's what I've
got such a great brand to begin that undertaking. I mean, if your brand being the book designer now has a line of journals and workbooks for authors, could hardly think of a better fit.
And that'll be my fourth business, Jesse. And I'm just saying this because, you know, I mean, I love writing. I love writing in a conversational style. I love blogging. To me, blogging and self-publishing are basically the same thing, to be honest with you. I don't see really hardly any difference, except for the fact that basically we give our blog content away. That's really the only difference. And also, I like the blog because it keeps me in touch with the people in my audience. So, for instance, I get tons of questions. People are asking me on my blog all the time. The reason they do that is because I answer questions all the time. So then, but that's my market research. It's all those questions people are asking all the time. So what I was trying to say was, if, like, the whole theme of this talk that we've been having, Jesse, is about the relationship between the author and the publisher and their market. And because, I started blogging at the end of 2009, really 2010. And since then, by doing exactly what I've been talking about here, and I have the advantage of having been in this business for a long time. So, it's cool to be old, except for the fact that you're old. So when I realized that, I started creating other businesses. Like, I have this book design templates where we sell pre-designed book templates for Microsoft Word and Adobe InDesign, because that, I realized, was what my readers needed and wanted. They wanted to do it themselves, but they didn't want to come out with something that didn't look like a real book. So we solved that problem. Since then, we've sold about 15,000 templates. I mean, it's huge.
Wow.
Good business.
Oh,
And we
that's great
started putting together marketing tools. And there are a lot of people online that do this. I just have a little bit different take on it. And partnering with professionals to put together stuff like, everybody knows you need a media kit. Okay, well, I've got a product where you can just fill in the blanks almost, and, with the help of an expert publicist, she put all her guidance into the product, and now you could just create a media kit in like a couple of hours, instead of paying somebody $1,500, $2,500 to do that for you. So it's really my connection to the market that has allowed me to understand what people want and need and how I can best help them. And then, I don't know about you, Jesse, but I consider that to be the basis of every successful business.
It's good. I mean, it's great. It's a great perspective. And I'm reflecting as you say that there's many times when I've believed in an author and their story and worked, and it can seem like sort of an uphill battle to craft it and get it right. I almost see myself as an A&R person in some ways in the book world. And I'm seeing you, Joel, as by your own definition, truly a publisher, as somebody who's in touch with a market and can really get feedback and has an open line of communication for what that market wants and needs, as well as the ability to provide it to them. And I think it's to be commended. It sounds like you've created innumerable resources for authors, for author entrepreneurs, and have many more in the coming.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not slowing down. And with my partner, who helps me produce a lot of this stuff, we've got a lot of plans to keep growing that business. And, I love doing this stuff. I love self-publishing. I love people getting their words, their story, their ideas, whatever it is they have to contribute, getting it out so people can experience it. So making publishing easier, making it faster, making it more efficient, making it more fun. That's it for me. I mean, helping authors, having fun, and making enough money to keep doing it. That's the three legs on my stool.
That's a great way to begin to wrap this up. And, as we're starting to come to a close, one, I'm just really appreciating everything that you do and your willingness to share that here on the summit, the support you've shown for the summit, and the great compliments that you've given me in the process are much appreciated. And I think it just speaks to your real passion for authors and for this publishing space. Maybe you can take us home with some final words of wisdom, and please let everybody know how they can get into your world, learn more about you, and become a part of your community.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you, Jesse. And I think, things like the summit are really the best way for authors to learn more about the community. It's really hard to kind of grab somebody who's been a professional in the publishing world for years and kind of bend their ear and get them to give you personalized feedback. But that's something like the summit. You can get so much actionable information from people who've been there, they've done it, they failed the way you're going to fail. They already know how to deal with that. So I think, educating yourself is the most powerful thing an author can do who's coming into this publishing side of stuff. If you've decided, yeah, maybe I'm going to try it, I'd love to give it a shot, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Hey, we don't know until we do it. You got to be brave. I can still remember to this day when I started as a blogger, and I'm not a kid. I mean, I've had a lot of life experiences, but I'm going to tell you honestly, when I started that blog, I wrote my first blog post, I was staring at that publish button. You know, in the WordPress, that button says publish. And I'm staring at it and I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know. I'm a little terrified. I mean, what if people don't like it? What if people decide I don't know what I'm talking about? What if I have a typo in there? I was just terrified. I was paralyzed. And, you know, I kind of get up, I walk away, I come back, I push the button, and only good things happen. That's my message. If you reach out, if you take a chance, you put yourself out there, you don't have to do anything crazy, you know, good things will happen. I went from that point, I've now published over 1 million words on that blog. I've had huge opportunities put in my way. You know, I've started these other businesses. You have to take that first step. You know, take the risk. Believe in yourself. There are people out there who would just love to hear what you have to say.
That is beautiful. And thank you for that inspiring message. And I think at this point, everybody's probably wondering, you know, how do we find you? How do we find out more?
Well, my basic base of operations is my blog, and that's at thebookdesigner.com. You have to have the on there, thebookdesigner.com. And that's the best place to get a hold of me. I've got a free PDF that'll help you get started in self-publishing there. It's right front and center if you want to get that. It's a lot of freebies, over 1,700 articles, lots of downloads, just fun, fun, fun.
I love it. Home base, thebookdesigner.com, thebookdesigner.com. Please, everybody, go and join Joel's community. Learn from the man. He is a true veteran with a perspective that's almost unrivaled when you factor in decades and decades of firsthand experience as an author, a publisher, an advisor to authors and publishers. Joel Friedlander, thank you so much for joining us on the Book Business and Brand Building Summit. And thank you, everybody, for watching and taking part. I hope this information serves you. I hope you are starting to really see how a book is, yes, intrinsically valuable, but also a part of a broader brand and, of course, a business that can become a thriving revenue generator for you as you help and serve people all around the world through your words. We'll see you on another interview. Joel, you want to take us home and send everybody off?
Thanks, Jesse. It's been absolutely a pleasure. And everybody enjoy the summit. It's just a fantastic experience, and have fun.